I did a review of NSuns and got a tornado of downvotes from the people that thought I was being unfairly harsh to one of their favorite pet programs. And by tornado, I mean 18 downvotes from angry Redditors as opposed to the usual 3 or 4 I get per video. One of the chief complaints came from these fellers who stated that Bromley likes to needlessly shit on programs. And this of course came after a 20-minute video breaking down the nuances of what makes the programs that NSuns was based off of work and why mashing them together led to the worst of both worlds.
It became personal with me.
So in my normal petty style, I decided to double down. So I was inspired to put this video together, which is just basically me roasting your favorite programs. Now, hopefully this will be some entertaining escapism, but there will also be some valid critiques that will help you decide which programs are appropriate for you. The truth is, so many things work that it's hard to rank a program based on if this will or won't make you strong. All of the programs that I'm going to rail against the hardest persist in training culture because there's still like 5 people who claim that it put like 300 pounds on their total in 24 hours. If you have 100 people run Smolov, there's going to be a few who see huge gains in their squat numbers in a very short period of time. But the other 95 people are going to incur a huge stress on their body only to see meager gains if they don't outright backslide and a healthy dosage of knee tendinopathy. There's going to be hyper responders, there's going to be people who are more durable, there's going to be people who can get away with more work. But I'm erring on the side of harsh criticisms to hopefully show some of the cracks and trade-offs in these programs so you can make some better decisions going forward. So without further ado, let's needlessly shit on some programs. So I guess I gave away the plot on Smolov. So let's start with that. Smolov is a Russian program from when they had a big pool of genetically elite and chemically enhanced lifters. Programs like this would be implemented after they went through their developmental training years, when they were at the height of competition, trying to edge out the other genetically elite and chemically enhanced lifters. Bottom line, not for you. So let's see, Smolov, I don't care about the 200 pounds you put on your squat in 6 days. Most people are gonna have a hard time and are going to backslide from this program. Bulgarian. This is the next logical step in this training pop culture bloodbath. Bulgarian is another example of an Olympic lifting team trying to take all of their talented lifters and elbow out all of the other world's talented lifters. The Bulgarians ended up getting a leg up because they just did more work than everybody else. They developed some freaks who got strong as shit, but the program was also known for being unforgivingly brutal. You would max every day, multiple times a day in multiple lifts, clocking hundreds of max effort attempts per week. Just a huge stress you have to put on your body, mashed with the likelihood that you're even going to survive long enough to get stronger, makes this a no-go for anybody who isn't an elite Soviet weightlifter currently chasing the podium. Max Aida had some really good videos with Chad Smith chronicling his time under Ivan Abadjiev, who actually created the Bulgarian system. Check that out for a more nuanced look at what made the program tick and why there are certainly better options. Bulgarian goes here next to the other Soviet-inspired fuckery. This takes us right into Bulgarian Lite. Now, as critical as I'm going to be, I'm actually a little charitable towards Greg Nuckols, who is a great figure in this field and who I actually like. I'm charitable because I understand what he was trying to do. He was taking this oddity of a program that gained a bunch of attention by the freakish amount of work that was being prescribed. And this ended up like consuming the attention of the average gym goer, regardless of whether or not it was appropriate for them. He tried to take it and make it more sustainable, more rational for this type of lifter. So Bulgarian Lite is certainly the lesser of two evils if you're going to try to do some daily maxing type of work. However, in trying to make this approach more doable by more people, it actually ends up supporting and propping up the concept of Bulgarian training as a sustainable, viable method of training for the masses, which it is not. There are very, very few people who will be able to commit to this amount of work, and there's literally zero reason to believe that you get some edge from doing so. So anything that takes lifters further away from figuring out what long-term training should look like is going to be a thumbs down for me. It's not going to kill as many people that try to run it, but it's still not even remotely close to as productive or as useful as any of the other things that you could do in a gym. You got to remember, guys, growth happens in all of those boring training sessions that make up most of the year, not in those 4-week hyper-motivated manic phases where you decide to triple the amount of work you're doing. Let's cover Sheiko. We're keeping a certain type of order going, consolidating all of the Soviet-inspired programs in one place. Now, Sheiko isn't a program so much as, say, a methodology. It's a broad style of training used by one of the most successful powerlifting coaches in the history of the sport. Sheiko is actually one of the programs that inspired NSuns, and after that review, I ended up doing a deep dive of Sheiko's programming. Essentially, it's generic Olympic lifting, not like the crazy shit in Bulgarian or Smolov, taken and applied to powerlifting. There are a ton of sets with the main lifts because it prioritizes practice with those movements. And like all good skill work, the effort is kept sub-maximal so you can actually get better at the lift. This is a hard detour from Western methods of training, which are typically more concerned with just building up a shit ton of fatigue in a single session and crossing your fingers and hoping for the best next week. This style of training is extraordinarily effective, and I strongly recommend you guys pick up Sheiko's book on the foundations of powerlifting. But the downside is that they are extremely monotonous, so much to the point that people usually end up hating training by the time they get to the end of it. And because everything is sub-maximal, you don't even get the short-term satisfaction of having hit a big lift that might keep you coming back each week. It's also a very complex type of program. If you want, you can reach out to Sheiko. He offers online coaching. I think the program is valuable for showing a different perspective on how you can get strong and the principles that can be carried forward. But for the masses who aren't diehard lifetime powerlifters or who aren't working directly under a coach, I don't think Sheiko is an appropriate method. So you can buy the book. If you do decide to run the program, I think it will be enlightening and you will improve. So there's value in it, more so than the other things that we've talked about so far. So I'm going to make this a B-list program. It's great for the elite lifter who's chasing that glory, but for the average person, there's too many unnecessary moving pieces for this to really be warranted. NSuns. This program is billed as a 5-3-1 variation, but it's like 93% Sheiko. It takes the very high volume rep schemes along with the frequency of Sheiko and just tags an AMRAP at the beginning, a la 5-3-1. The big problem with this, as I said in my video picking it apart, was that in doing it, it betrays what each program does well by itself. 5-3-1 works well because it's simple and sustainable, and it's appropriate for a lot of people. Sheiko is, on the other hand, very complex and has a shit ton of work, but it's made sustainable by that very complexity with the rolling back and forth between small, medium, and heavy workouts. NSuns takes the amount of work prescribed in Sheiko and progresses it linearly. This goes right into the camp of things that might get some people strong in a very short period of time, but are also going to burn out a lot of people and move them farther away from understanding of what makes for long-term sustainable strength training. The author of NSuns actually reached out to me and we had a bit of a back and forth. Very nice guy, and it looks like he's gotten very strong in the past few years. And even said that there is a reason he deleted the Reddit thread and he wasn't offended by my critique. He actually thought a lot of it was spot on. I don't make these critiques to shit on any one person. The program shouldn't be evaluated emotionally. It shouldn't matter that you or your buddies have a fond experience with it. You have to consider how the moving pieces are put together and how it can affect a large population of people trying to run it. I look at these objectively the way I would look at an engine. And if you're not doing the same thing, you're doing something wrong. So sorry, NSuns, you're going D-list. Suck it, Reddit. Westside. We're moving down the geographical gradient from Eastern to Western methodologies. Westside is distinctly an American training style, but claims to have taken a ton of inspiration from the work done by the Soviets. Remember that super specific, monotonous, skill-based approach I talked about that Olympic lifting coaches like Sheiko have been able to take and apply to powerlifting? Yeah, Westside isn't that at all. In fact, it's just the opposite. Movements get rotated literally every week. The volume with compound movements is very low, and efforts are extremely maximal. It is actually diametrically opposed to what the Soviets did or advocated for. Again, that's not to say that it doesn't work or you can't get stronger. Obviously, they took the mediocre talent pool that was littered around Columbus, Ohio, and turned out some absolute monsters. But you can make the argument, in fact, I am making the argument, that that has much more to do with the formal training environment that mandated people show up and had high expectations, and the fact that it was just viciously competitive. That just doesn't exist anywhere in American powerlifting. Also, the drug use is legendary. There's a difference between using drugs as a quote-unquote restorative and using frequent increases in the dosage of harsh compounds to perpetuate strength gains when things get stagnant. From the mouths of the people who train there, that's exactly how the drugs were used. Anyways, all those things I talked about work against what the average trainee needs to do. There is no movement specificity. It ends up being just a hall pass for going hard as fuck every single workout. Novice and intermediate lifters, if anything, need to learn restraint to make their training sustainable long term. Also, the endless variation of exercises is very hard to navigate without somebody who is very, very well versed in this type of training. Long story short, there's just a lot of pitfalls, and that's the main reason why after all these years, few, if any, elite strength athletes do Westside. The reduced volume and frequency still makes it a step above Smolov or the Bulgarian system, but Westside, in my opinion, extremely overhyped, and I think there have been many more people who have tried it with meager results only to go on to something more standard and more normal than there have been people who have discovered it to be the holy grail of strength that it was sold as being. Candito 6 week. I'm going to say up front, I really like this program. Candito is a very talented lifter, a great content creator, and has a lot of useful information on his channel. And this program is so popular because I think it rationally address what a lot of lifters who watch his content needed. This retains a lot of the specificity that programs like Sheiko rely on, and it uses the main movement or close variations with high frequency throughout the week. And while difficult, the sets aren't prescribed to be maximal. That means you can rack up just a lot of skill work. So this high frequency specific approach is often thought of as like authentic powerlifting training. And while not as many people commit to this style of training as you might think, it's still pretty damn popular and it can be very effective. What I like is that this is a short 6-week cycle and it moves the lifters all the way from high volume to the heavy peaking work in a very short period of time. So it matches the attention span of the average lifter, but it's still concise enough and well enough put together that it can actually make you stronger in the process. Whether you're a specific power lifter or just a general strength enthusiast who is really focused on seeing some short-term improvement in your main lifts, this is a great way to get your toe in the water and to start to get down how this style of training actually works. It's very accessible, it's hard to F up, and I can say that I've actually had a lot of success with some of my clients with this style of training. Good job, Johnny. For the fact that it's so productive, it's thought out, and it does the job of getting people closer to understanding how programming works at that level, I gotta call Candito an S-tier program. I think it's really good. GZCL. From the mind of Cody the Fever Lefevre. I had the pleasure of interviewing Cody last year. He's a really intelligent lifter with a lot of principally based insight. And one of the reasons I reached out to him is because I was actually a pretty big fan of this program. I'm sure you've all probably seen the diagram by now. The main structure of GZCL is to put your exercises for the day in tiers. Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3, which is basically your main lift, a variation, and then smaller isolation accessory work. So in that way, it's a very well-rounded approach, which I think is extremely beneficial for the majority of people who might run a program like this. There's a solid strength progression that's very easy to follow for the main lifts, and the percentages drop and the reps get higher as you move down from the big movements to the small one. I really like GZCL. It's very comprehensive, very easy to apply, and it does a great job of targeting the things that the average lifter needs in their program, which I maintain is more high rep accessory work as opposed to just beating yourself up against a barbell every day. Good job, Cody. This does a lot of things right that I think Candito's program does, and the fact that it starts with principles, with visual diagrams, with representations of what you're doing and why and how it breaks down mathematically, again, for the learning experience and who it's appropriate for, very much an S-tier program. Bullmastiff. Time for some self-flagellation. Bullmastiff was originally one of the 10 free programs I gave in Base Strength, which is currently up at EmpireBarbellStore.com. So check that out if you haven't. And there was a lot of interest around it. I expanded on it and made a couple of tweaks in the follow-up, Peak Strength, and ended up having a lot of people follow the program. I put this after GZCL because it's more in line with that type of program. The exercises move down a pyramid in a similar fashion. You start with your main lifts, move on to a variation, and then finish with the high rep isolation stuff, essentially bodybuilding. The differences are going to be in my preferred exercise selection and the strength progressions for the main lifts, which were inspired by an auto-regulated approach made famous by Doug Young. It features high volume AMRAP sets and a wide variety of training thresholds, and I wrote it specifically for that reason. So I'm happy that this program became as popular as it did because I wrote it to address what I think the average trainee needs in more of their training, and I think it accomplishes that. So yeah, I'm not ashamed to say that I think pretty highly of this program. And potential pitfalls, it's a lot of work. And the point of this program is to adapt to that work and to keep that work increasing week to week. There's a type of lifter who just doesn't get excited about traditional bodybuilding gym lifts. My gut instinct is to tell you to get over it because getting stronger isn't about what you want to do, but I've been around long enough to know that it actually kind of is. And if you've attempted and given up on programs like these numerous times, and you think you're much more likely to take a more specific program seriously, your best route might be to do that. So I think Bullmastiff is very valuable as a program. I don't think it quite has the educational quality that GZCL or Candito 6-week has, but I think it's a very solid method of approaching progressing your lifts over time. And I think it addresses a lot of weak areas that lifters tend to have. So I'm gonna put it A-list. I think most of you guys would be better off running it than not. Kong. This is my newest program up on the Boost Camp app, and it's absolutely free. I know that ebook, I promise you, it's still pending. I promise it'll be out very shortly. Kong was inspired by what I was doing at the end of 2022 when I just finished a big contest prep for Worlds, and I wanted to spend some time just having fun with training again. It involves some of my favorite go-tos to clear out, including very high rep compound movement sets, and an emphasis on building volume up over time with a lot of varied exercises, as opposed to just getting heavier. I really like pyramids and reverse pyramids, and this program mashes all of them together. Each block is distinctly different, which I think serves a good purpose for new lifters that do need dedicated periods of experimentation with different types of training, but might not know how long they should run each one, or might hop from one version to the other without any clear direction. This gets your foot in the water with a handful of different approaches, from generic bodybuilding splits with short rest periods and high amounts of fatigue to more power building style of training. And I wrote it so that each block rationally feeds into the next one. I'm actually really excited to see how people do on this one, how many people absolutely hate it for all the sets of 15 on squats and deads. There are some pitfalls and problems with it. This is not a dedicated strength program, and that's why I put size and hypertrophy in the description as opposed to strength. It's not a dedicated strength program. I firmly believe that you will get stronger by doing this, but that's really going to depend on how specialized you are. If you are already a very specialized powerlifter who has been training in that bracket for a long period of time, I'm not going to tell you that you're going to see all-time PRs at the end of this. Although the increase in mass and the exposure to thresholds you're not used to will set you up for success when you go back to a more specific block. But it's different. It addresses areas that tend to lag or get ignored by most lifters, and I think it's a useful brick in your base, and it's going to set you up for success down the road. So I think this does have more of an educational component in giving some experimentation to people, and I think it is productive for size. As a strength program, especially a specific strength program, it doesn't rank quite as high. So for that reason, Kong. I could have gone with King Kong, but I went with the dog toy instead. So for that reason, I'm going to put Kong as a B-list program. I think Bullmastiff is going to cover a lot more bases, and it's going to be a more razor-focused approach. But Kong, I think, is still a very useful approach to putting size on your frame. It's just not quite as directed. 531. This is one of the most popular strength programs ever put out. Second probably only to starting strength, and for good reason. As much as I can make fun of Wendler for the endless variations, the weird labels he used to try to brand his methods, and the cash grabby sequel books that didn't really add anything to the program, but really just threw more moving pieces onto it and confused what 531 actually was about. Yeah, I could point all of those things out, but I'm not, because I'm a gentleman and I take the high road. What makes 531 work is that it's simple and the jumps in weight are paced appropriately. Most of the linear progressions that are designed for novices have weight jumps every single session, and by the time you get some strength, that becomes unsustainable. By working in 3-week waves, 531 casts a wider net, and that's exactly why so many people have ran it successfully. You're not going to get very strong very fast. It is meant to be ran over a very long period of time to eke out consistent growth. That's diametrically opposed to what you see in all of these Soviet-inspired super programs that promise hundreds of pounds on your lifts in a short period of time. That doesn't work for very long. Eventually, if you want to get serious about training, you will need to graduate from 531 into something more aggressive. And doing that means getting a handle on your recovery so you know when to hit the gas and when to hit the brakes. But for the bottom of the iceberg of lifters, the novice and early intermediates who aren't quite there yet, this is very appropriate. Good job, Jim. For the ease of access, for the predictability of gains, and for the number of people that this works well for, I'm going to make 531 an A-tier program. I'm a big fan of that. Fifth set. Fifth set is one of those programs I'm going to rank down for other reasons than it doesn't work or you can't get stronger on it. Fifth set is yet another program that uses plus sets, where you pick a relatively easy weight and do a bunch of repeating submaximal sets to get practice and some token volume in. Then the last set, you finish with an AMRAP. That's where the intensity is, and that's where the progression of the program comes in. 531 uses plus sets, Juggernaut uses it, Greyskull LP uses it, and hell, I even use it. It works well. I'm a big fan of plus sets. The problem I have with fifth set is that it was haphazardly written. By the looks of it, it was written over a weekend. The progression doesn't make a ton of sense, and it's extremely derivative. Fifth set leans into the slow progression to a fault. Not only do weight jumps come only 5 pounds at a time, doesn't matter if you squat 200 or 600, but the weeks are stretched into 9-day microcycles. So the duration of 5 weeks worth of training amounts to only 25 extra pounds being put on the bar for your working weight over a 45-day run. For all intents and purposes, that's just step loading. It's functionally not different than if you just kept the weight the same and repeated the AMRAP sets every week. The structure is fine, the set and rep schemes are fine, and there are even some things in there that I like choosing which needs more work between your squat and deadlift and reducing percentages on the thing you're already good at. The big problem is with the poorly conceived progression, which is the worst of both worlds. It uses tactics that are usually appropriate for powerlifters who use a lot of high volume and maximal work so that they can recover, but then removes the high volume and maximal work. As much as I wasn't happy to pay $40 for like 8 pages worth of content, and as much as I roasted it in the video I made about it, fifth set is actually a viable approach to training. I think it's just way too slow. You could take that structure and build on it and tweak it. I was tempted to give it B status because I don't think it's useless. Something about Corey's face. I don't know. Something about Swede. I'm going to put it C tier. Starting strength. We now move from high-minded Olympic weightlifting inspired programs with tons of consideration to load variation exercise selection and specificity, to westernized beginner programs that you can jot down on a cocktail napkin. I actually love starting strength. I love what it did. At a time where the squat racks were always empty at the local gym and where seeing somebody deadlift was a rare sight indeed, starting strength was one of the big sticks of dynamite that contributed to the explosion of popularity with the barbell. Its big winning point is that it's super easy to run. It's idiot proof. And that is the most important thing for a completely green lifter who's training by themselves. There's no way you can mess up the program, and it works for just about everybody that runs it. Are there potentially better ways to train if you have, say, a coach that can keep you from making beginner mistakes? Absolutely, but that's a different scenario with a need for a different solution. Rule number one of selling a program to a bunch of skittish, impulsive, uneducated lifters is to baby-proof it, and that's what starting strength does. The thing is that starting strength is absolutely not appropriate for anybody who is not a rote novice. You will spend too much time doing work that isn't heavy or hard enough to cause a growth stimulus, and by the time you get to the good quality of work that will grow you, the rate of progression will come too fast and quickly burn you out. Your goal on this program should be to outgrow it as fast as possible. But for newbies training solo who want to put their training on autopilot and guarantee growth for the next 6 months, it's absolutely great. So for how easy it is to run, for its targeted audience, for the predictability of the growth, for all it does to get people's foot in the water, and for how popular it made training, I gotta give starting strength A-tier status. I think there are other ways of training that are more viable, but those are going to come with more instruction up front. There's going to be more of a learning curve, more pitfalls for people who are brand new. So for those who are just starting out, you can't do much better than that. It's a pretty good approach. Now this brings us to the logical follow-up to starting strength, which is the Texas method. The problem that starting strength has for intermediate lifters, the Texas method solves. It maintains frequency for the main lifts, but now undulates the amount of work so that more advanced lifters can continue to progress. So with a volume day, a recovery day, and an intensity day making up the week, the 5-pound jumps now come once a week instead of every single session multiple times per week. Did I mention I'm a fan of programs that solve real problems that lifters tend to have without requiring 5 years of practice to pass the learning curve? Texas Method does that. It's a flat out solid program. Personally, I bias to programs that have more variation, but I think any one of you that isn't already at the top of your sport will benefit from going through some period of time with this type of training. Texas Method, as seen in practical programming, putting it right up there with starting strength. Very solid, very predictable program, very appropriate for a lot of people. Next is Greyskull LP, which is a direct competitor to starting strength. I believe Johnny Payne actually worked with Mark Ripito at some point, and this program seems to be inspired by that style of training. Besides some minor changes to the split, the main difference between Greyskull LP and starting strength is the AMRAP set, where starting strength is just repeating sets of 5, Greyskull LP is repeating sets of 5 with the last set done for as many as you can. From week 1, every exercise you do finishes with that AMRAP set, and that keeps the effort high, and it keeps the lifter psychologically engaged. Every session, you're adding 5 more pounds and trying to match or beat the number from the previous AMRAP. This adds a surprising amount of oomph to the program, and it addresses the problem with starting strength where so much of the work is really too light to do anything productive. The AMRAP sets make sure that you're going to get a reasonable growth stress. I've actually run Greyskull as a stronger lifter for a short period of time with good success. Stronger lifters aren't going to be able to run this for months on end, but the program is simple enough for a 4 to 6 week comeback or to get your feet wet to volume and frequency again before jumping into a more specific contest prep. Good job, Johnny. So I think Greyskull LP is just as good as starting strength. In fact, maybe a little better because it's more appropriate for more lifters. You don't just need to apply that to road novices. A lot of intermediates can run it. It's very simple training put on autopilot, and I'm definitely a fan of that. Juggernaut is a low frequency program like 531, where the main lifts are hit once per week. But Juggernaut put a lot more emphasis on volume in the form of repeating sets, especially with high reps, than most of the other popular programs out there. Anything that prescribes 5 sets of 10 with squats and deadlifts at some point is going to get a thumbs up from me. Strength specific? Not exactly, but that doesn't mean it doesn't get you stronger or doesn't fix the weak points that are holding your strength back. It's base building. That's what it's supposed to be there for. And it should suck. I like the 3-week wave structure where you start out with 5 sets of 10 and then go into 3 sets of 10 and then going to 1 set of 10 or more, repeating the cycle with 8s and then 5s and then 3s and so on. It's also interesting because it mashes the 3-week wave that's usually part of simple linear progressions into a linearly periodized template. This makes it a great way for aspiring competitors to get their feet wet with more formal powerlifting styles. Anybody who dedicates himself to this amount of work is going to come out a lot bigger and stronger. And more importantly, they're going to have more insight in how to run a full powerlifting macro cycle. So for the educational component, thumbs up. Good job, chat. And you knew repeating sets of 10 on squats and deads, like you knew this was going to be at the very least an 8. Whatever happened to Brandon Lilly? The dude went from being one of the biggest, baddest looking motherfuckers around to playing the guitar in his flip-flops on Instagram. Anyways, Cube Method was popular for a time. I don't know if anybody is actively running it now. It was a very interesting and thoughtful take that attempted to apply real useful principles to a program. The idea is that you rotate your main lifts through different thresholds each week. So week 1 might be volume, week 2 might be intensity, week 3 might be speed or recovery, and then repeat the cycle. The complexity increases further with the staggering of exercises. So you're not working the same threshold twice in 1 week. Now, this isn't terribly complex to run, but it is a pain in the ass that many lifters will struggle to keep track of. And it really isn't necessary for most of the lifters that'll run it. Very advanced lifters who are hoisting the heaviest poundages can get by just doing one intensity set every 3 weeks and spending the other time towards some token volume or recovery work. But this is just too frequent an amount of work for your run-of-the-mill novice or intermediate. I get what he was going for here, and I think there's definitely an application for the right lifter, but I think there's also a reason it didn't take off. It was a neat, brandable structure of training, and it's another example of, yeah, you can do it this way, but it's not recommended for most people. Cube, you had potential, but solid C-list quality program. Lastly, we have Supersquats. I am a huge fan of old-timey barbell-based stuff that is very simple and leans on a lot of work. The problem is in making the work sustainable. One of the reasons I love Supersquats, it's not just because it's hard, because it teaches you how to strain, but because if you can overcome that hill of pain and suffering, you can actually see a lot of growth. You can actually get really strong, and it is more sustainable because of the threshold it's working in. It essentially uses breathing squats as a form of density work. You start with something around 70% and you try to do a set of 20, taking 3 or more deep breaths in between each rep. And it takes a couple minutes if you do it right to get through. It's extremely hard, but you will be amazed at how quickly you increase endurance and how much bigger and stronger you get in that period of time, especially if you're not used to it. Probably not recommended for lifters who are already more advanced, who are already strong. But if you're in that novice, early intermediate stage, where you have kind of middle of the road strength, you can get by with this. It will be sustainable and it will teach you something about yourself. It also features other compound movements done with high frequency. So each workout is a whole body workout. I also like that approach for some definite period of time for everybody to run through at one point or another, because that is so different than what most of us do. So it's a nice, very training stimulus. The only reason this doesn't rank higher is because it's not a focused, dedicated strength program, and it's not going to help a ton towards getting you to figure out how that goes down. In fact, you can walk away from this thinking that this effort, this ball busting effort, should be just how you handle your workouts. And that's not really sustainable. There's a lot more to it than that. But I do have a soft spot for Supersquats. I've done 20 rep challenges in the past. I'll probably do them again in the future. So I recommend you guys check it out. I'm gonna put it as a solid B tier program. I think it's a valuable period of training for your run-of-the-mill strength enthusiast, but it's not going to be appropriate for people who are chasing specific strength goals, especially in the short term. So that's all I got for today, guys. Thanks so much for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments. Give me your hate. What do you agree with? What did I get wrong? Also, I want to thank Barbell Apparel for sponsoring this channel, as well as Boostcamp. Go ahead and check out Kong, Full Sturker, and Bullmastiff, all available on Boostcamp. Until next time, this is Bromley. I'll see you.